हरे कृष्णा। और Hare Krishna, welcome you all. Let's sing Kirtan, then we'll begin our fifth chapter. नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदांत स्वामी नामिने नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यनादि पश्चात् जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे राम हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम हरे हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे राम हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे राम हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे राम हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे राम हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम हरे कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम हरे कृष्ण हरे राम हरिनाम संकीर्तन की जय। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। Hare Krishna. Welcome everyone in our fifth day of So far we have discussed 4 chapters. We saw Arjuna's confusion. Arjuna's confusion was removed by Krishna in 2nd chapter. Then Krishna spoke about Karma Yoga in 3rd chapter, working without attachment, working as a duty, working for Vishnu. Work as a sacrifice for Vishnu was prescribed in 3rd chapter. And then in 4th chapter we saw Krishna spoke about, Arjuna asked in 3rd chapter that what stops one from doing his karma, as if some force is there. So then Lord explains that this is lust and it has to be curbed by transcendental knowledge. And then he speaks about transcendental knowledge in 4th chapter, wherein he gives knowledge about himself. Then he speaks that how he is goal of all the paths, and then he gave knowledge of again karma yoga, but working with knowledge that Lord is the possessor of everything. And then he spoke about various kind of sacrifices which ultimately culminates in transcendental knowledge. But at the end of 4th chapter, after giving the summary of transcendental knowledge, Krishna told Arjuna to get up and fight. Right? So again, in the beginning of 5th chapter, Arjuna asked a question. Very beautifully he asked this question. He again gets confused. Why he gets confused, we will see that, and how Krishna clears that doubt. Doubt is like a demon. Whenever Arjuna is in doubt, he addresses Krishna by the name Madhusudana, Arisudana, like that. You see in Bhagavad Gita, there are various names by which Krishna is addressing Arjuna and Arjuna is addressing Krishna. These names have very important significance. They are very significant. These are not used just like that as a synonym, paryayavachi, not like that. But it has a contextual meaning. So doubts are like demons. Whenever doubts arise in the mind, one should immediately try to get rid of it. Chanakya says, doubt, depth, and fire. 3 things should be immediately vanquished. Otherwise, it will go on increasing and it will destroy us only. So that's why doubts in the spiritual life, especially regarding self, relationship between Supreme Lord, what to do, what not to do, these doubts are very, one should immediately curb these doubts, immediately get the solution. Otherwise, he will end up doing something which is not recommended. So this 5th chapter is again Karma Yoga, but this is different from 3rd chapter. How it is different? This chapter talks about completely engaging in Krishna consciousness, action in Krishna consciousness. So you can say advanced version of what we saw in 3rd chapter. The previous chapter, yesterday we saw these. This is the summary of 4th chapter. Krishna explained about himself in first few verses. Then he explained how he is the creator of Varnashrama Dharma based on Guna and Karma. And then he explained that how he is the goal of Varnashrama Dharma. And he again spoke about Karma Yoga, a person who is in knowledge, for him there is no duty. Krishna explained. And then different kind of sacrifices, different people they perform sacrifices in different way. But ultimately, one who is in transcendental knowledge and one who works based on that knowledge, he is much better. He's the topmost. So Krishna explained about this, and at the end he told Arjuna to get up and fight. Armed with the knowledge, O Bharata, stand up and fight. This was the last instruction in 4th chapter. Now Arjuna said, "Oh Krishna, first of all you asked me to renounce work. I've not kept Sanskrit verses here. Few important verses only I've kept. All verses are important, but which I felt more important for this series." So Arjuna said, "Oh Krishna, first of all you asked me to renounce work, and then again you recommend work with devotion." Now if we see clearly in 3rd chapter, that's why I'm requesting everyone that please read at least translation so you will know the flow. In 3rd chapter, Arjuna asked. 2nd chapter, Krishna spoke about the science of soul, and then he spoke about Buddhi Yoga. Arjuna got confused that using intelligence means not fighting. going in seclusion. So he asked whether renunciation is better or working, or this fruitive work is better. And Krishna explained work in devotion is better. But at the end of third chapter, he told Arjuna that you renounce. But Krishna is talking of renunciation, talking to renounce the desire to enjoy senses. He is not asking to renounce work. But Arjuna could not understand it completely. He is asking you. You ask me to renounce work, and then again you recommend work with devotion. Now, will you kindly tell me definitely which of the two is more beneficial? So it's better that we read the purport of this verse because Prabhupada has explained very beautifully in this purport. And then it will be very clear. Fifth chapter discussion will be very clear. And I have outlined few verses of last three chapters, which we have fourth, third, and second. That will also make very clear why Arjuna gets confused. So here is the first. So in the fifth chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Lord says that the work in devotional service. This is purport to the first verse. That work in devotional service is better than dry mental speculation. Devotional service is easier than latter because being transcendental in nature, it frees one from reaction. So now this is brief in summary Prabhupada is explaining. In second chapter, we heard knowledge of soul and its entanglement in the material body. How to get out of this material entanglement by Buddhi Yoga was explained in second chapter. In third chapter, it was explained the person who is situated on platform of knowledge, he has no longer any duty to perform. And at the end of fourth chapter, and in fourth chapter, Lord told that all kinds of sacrificial work culminate in knowledge. Now, to cultivate knowledge, even in material circle, when one wants to study very deeply, generally he disentangles himself from the society or he sits alone because I have to study, I have to focus on cultivating knowledge. A person who is very much engaged in other affairs, working outside, and still studying very deeply, these two things are incompatible, isn't it? So Arjuna is also thinking like that. All kinds of sacrificial work when culminate in knowledge. So developing knowledge means going alone, remaining alone somewhere. And why to fight? And at the end of fourth chapter, Lord advised Arjuna to wake up and fight, being situated in perfect knowledge. So whether to cultivate knowledge, going away from battlefield, or whether to fight. So Arjuna could not understand this. So Krishna is stressing importance of both work in devotion and inaction in knowledge. So Arjuna still could not understand how by fighting he will not incur any sins. Inaction means there is no reaction. The whole and sole purpose of Vedic literature or the scriptures is to free us from this karmic reaction. Unless and until we are free from karmic reaction, we are not going to spiritual world. So that's the main purpose. So Arjuna is asking this. Let's see his confusion from second chapter onwards. How Krishna is explained and why Arjuna gets confused. So in second chapter, from 11th to 30th verse, knowledge of soul was described. Krishna explained about prescribed duty, that swadharmam api cha aveksha. These verses were there that you fight. If you don't fight, you will be called as a coward. And if you die, you will go to heaven. If you if you win, you will enjoy the kingdom. So fight. Fight for the sake of fighting without thinking of success and failure. This is called yoga. And then Krishna again explained in second chapter that how Vedas only talk about three modes, various rituals, various things are there. So don't get entangled in Vedic flowery language. There are various things in Vedas which appear very spiritual. That I'm doing big puja, havan, or some rituals, some kind of sacrifice. But ultimately, the goal is to enjoy the senses. People perform various kinds of vrata, various kinds of home, but this is all for gaining something. So this is entangling. This is sense gratification in a regulated way. So Krishna said, disentangle yourself from this Vedic flowery language. In third chapter, he explained that there is no duty for a person who is in knowledge. And fourth chapter, he explained that how all sacrificial works culminate in knowledge. And last verse, he said, get up and fight. So Arjuna is again confused whether to renounce, be situated in knowledge, renounce everything, no desire for any results, no desire for result. I don't desire anything, so I should not fight. Arjuna so far has not understood that this fight is for Krishna's pleasure. Anything, as Krishna explained in third chapter, yagya arthat karmano anyatra. Yagya arthat karmano. Karma has to be performed for the pleasure of Vishnu. Anya karma, anyatra, any other karma binds us. But this war is not binding for Arjuna because this war is for the pleasure of Lord. Others who are fighting on opposite side, they are fighting for themselves. So they are going to be, they will have to face reactions of that. But Arjuna is fighting for Krishna. Krishna wants this. This will be very clear in subsequent chapters when Krishna reveals his purpose of assembling all the warriors on this battlefield. When he shows his universal form in 11th chapter, this will become very clear. So Arjuna has not understood this, and he thinks that fighting is still for myself because I want kingdom. So he's confused now. So he asks. Then Krishna replies, Sri Bhagavan Uvacha Sanyasa karma yogascha nihishreya sakarabhubhau tayostu karma sanyasat karma yogo vishishyate. Now again, as we discussed little bit in third chapter, karma sannyasa, this is still very much respected in our country. People think sannyas means karma sannyas. Give up everything, no more work. But karma sannyasa is not recommended in Kali Yuga. There are 5 things which is banned in Kali Yuga. One of that is karma sannyas. Means giving up your duty and take sannyas, go away from society. There are various kinds of sannyasa. One is called uh, there is something called Kutichak. There is another sannyas called Bahudak. There is called Parivrajkachar and Paramhamsa. So generally sannyasa in earlier ages meant one leaves his home, leaves his family and goes to a secluded place. And there practices austerities and get rid of this bodily consciousness. But this karma sannyasa is not for Kali Yuga because in Kali Yuga, people want to abstain from performing their duty because the condition is so severe in this age that even to earn 2 times a good meal is difficult for masses of the people. So generally, if they get any opportunity to renounce work or to give up their duty, they will immediately take to it. So this is not recommended for Kali Yuga people. Earlier times, in Vedic times, people used to do their duty like brahmacharya, then grihastha ashram. So they would fulfill the duties of grihastha ashram, then they would take vanprastha and then sannyas. But nobody is practicing that in Kali Yuga. Nobody is getting brahmachari training. Nobody is getting training how to become a good grihastha. And then nobody knows what is vanprastha. People remain attached to their position, their place, their home till the end of their life. So that's why this karma sannyas is not recommended. So Krishna is saying here, the renunciation of work and work in devotion are both good for liberation. If one has renounced everything and is practicing austerity, it may give him liberation in one way. This is impersonal liberation. But work in devotion is also good for liberation. And among these two, Krishna says, karma yoga. Karma yoga, work in devotional service is better. How this is better? This will be very clear in subsequent verses. Now here's a pastime, very wonderful pastime from Srimad Bhagavatam. There was a king. Why karma yoga is better? Why engaging in sacrifices or engaging in ritualistic activities or renouncing things which are the secondary, the other processes which are mentioned in Vedas, this is very harmful. I mean, very detrimental for our liberation. Why this is so? There is one pastime of a king in Riga. This king, it was very long ago before Lord Krishna appeared. This king was very fond of performing sacrifices because he wanted to remain in heaven for a long period of time. So he would perform, please don't unmute yourself. He would perform lots of sacrifices. He would give lots of charity to Brahmanas. So by performing sacrifices and charity, one increases his duration in. It's like acquiring pious credits in your account. The more credit you have, the more you can stay in heavenly planets. Just like if you have big bank balance, you can stay for longer time on your holiday trip. But if you have less balance, few days and come back. So everyone wants to enjoy in heaven. So once what he did, he had donated several cows. He had invited thousands of brahmanas. To each brahmana, he gave thousands of cows. So he gave some cows to one brahmana and then some cows to other brahmana. One cow from this group, which was given to first brahmana, she came back and entered Goshala. She did not want to go. So because there were lots of cows, so Brahmana could not notice that one of my cow is going back and entering king's Goshala. And king also did not know this. So then when he was giving charity to other Brahmana, he gave the same cow which belonged to first Brahmana now. But this cow had come back. So he gave that same cow in donation to second Brahmana. So now when these Brahmanas are going and Brahmanas, uh, no matter how much they accept in charity, they always remain in poverty condition. Why? Because one of their duty is dan, taking donation, other is pratigrahana. So they accept donation and they give charity also. So Brahmanas, they accept charity, they keep them for themselves, which fulfills their basic necessities. Rest everything they engage in performing sacrifices. They don't keep for themselves. That's why they used to live in small cottages and very simple life. But accepting charity is the duty of Brahman. This is to purify the income of householders. So these Brahmanas, when they were going, so first Brahmana noticed, this is my cow. How is it in this Brahmana's group? So they both Brahmanas started arguing. This is my cow. The other Brahman said, no, king gave it to me. So then they both became very angry with the king. Oh, this king is a cheater. He gives charity to one Brahmana, steals the cow back, and then gives that same cow in charity to the other Brahmana. And he's just earning name and fame. So they both went to the king and they were fighting. The king could understand what must have happened. So he was begging for forgiveness. He said, I'll give you both 1,000 more cows. And please forgive me, please don't fight for this cow. But Brahman said, no, how can you? This we are talking about previous yugas. Don't get surprised that how is it for one cow they are fighting? Are they so greedy? No. If you have given something to a brahmana, and if you have promised something to a brahmana, if you don't fulfill that, you will go to hell. This is the rule. This is Vedic rule. So promise to a brahmana or something which has been offered to brahmana, if it is taken back without his permission, then this reduces our piety. So Brahmanas, they were very strict in this. Otherwise, they would become cause of sending someone to hell. So then they became dissatisfied with the king and they cursed him. They cursed him to become a lizard. And this king remained like a lizard in a well till the time when Dwapar Yuga came, end of Dwapar Yuga, Krishna appeared. And one day in Dwarka, these princes were playing. So their ball went in the well and there was a huge lizard. So then Krishna came and he touched the lizard and the king got liberated. So then king explained that how fruitive activities are futile. One slight mistake and you're gone. That's why he recommended that please, you all are glorious, you all are Yadus, you are in touch with Krishna, you are Krishna's family members. So he glorified devotional service. So there are various such instances in our Vedic literatures where a person is very attached to performing fruitive activities, but this does not lead to ultimate liberation. And if slight mistake is committed, it leads to great punishment. So that's why, especially in Kali Yuga, nobody knows the proper mantras, proper way of doing sacrifices. So it is not recommended. Devotional service is better. So the proper understanding of renunciation is explained by our acharyas. Srila Rupa Goswami, he explains that what is renunciation? What is renunciation? So there are two verses. He says here, प्रापंचिकतया बुद्धया हरि संबंधी वस्तुना मुमुक्षुभिः परित्यागो वैराग्यम फल्गु कथ्यते. He says when persons eager to achieve liberation renounce things Oh, I renounce, I don't want this, I don't want this. They renounce everything without relating it to Supreme Personality of God. That's like if a servant says, if you come here, like we are in Juhu, near to our temple is Amitabh Bachchan's bungalow, very costly bungalow. A person walks by, passes near from his bungalow, and he looks at the bungalow and says, I renounce this bungalow. The guards is standing outside, they will laugh at him. He's a mad person or what. So what does not belong to us, we cannot renounce. So what belongs to us? If we start thinking, what belongs to us? Home, family members, not even our body belongs to us. It all belongs to Krishna. So one who renounces artificially, thinking everything as separate, does not see that everything is related to Krishna. This kind of renunciation is called incomplete, Falgu Vairagya. Whereas renunciation is complete, Anasaktasya Vishaya Yatharham Upayunjatah Nirbandha Krishna Sambandhe Vairagyam Yukta Vairagyam Uchyate. So our acharyas have given this concept of Yukta Vairagya, where a person is engaging everything in Krishna's service. He is not attached to enjoying those things, but he is engaging everything in Krishna's service. If it can be engaged, or if it is required for preaching or propagating Krishna consciousness, accept it. If not, reject it. So this is called renunciation. It is complete when it is in knowledge that everything in existence belongs to the Lord, and no one should claim proprietorship over anything. This is actual understanding of renunciation. So that's why in a in our Vaishnava Sampradaya, or actual understanding of Vedic literature, Lord Brahma himself says that one can stay wherever he is. Sthane sthitah. Be wherever, stay wherever you are. Be in your position. One does not have to give up his position. But staying in own position, if one engages his tanu, vang, mana, body, mind, and words for the service of Lord, he is best situated. He doesn't have to go to forest and practice different kind of austerities and penances. He is topmost yogi. This will become more clear in 6th chapter. Again and again, you will see Krishna is in all these chapters. For in purpose, Prabhupada is making it clear from the first chapter only. But Krishna is also uh, in several verses, he's giving hint that direct devotional service to me is better. That's the goal of Bhagavad Gita. And in later chapters, starting from 7th chapter onwards, he will start speaking more directly. Till 6th chapter, he's stressing on karma, doing work, but in as a service to the Lord. So he is stressing upon that. He is stressing on bhakti through karma. This is first 6 chapters. So karma yoga or karma sannyasa, Krishna says, Gyayah sanitya sannyasi, yona dveshti na kanksha. Nirdvando hi mahabaho sukham bandhat pramuchyate. The one who neither hates nor desires the fruits of his activity is known to be always renounced. So whatever comes to me on its own accord, according to my destiny, if I get millions of rupees, if I don't get anything. In both conditions, if one is same, equipoised, he is called renounced. But what happens to people in general, what happens to us, when uh, we get good results, we immediately become happy. We tend to enjoy those results. And when we don't get results, we become morose, we become sad. Because still, this is very difficult to give up, this tendency, keeping oneself in the center. But Krishna is saying, if I got something, why to avoid it? Like you see the life of Pandavas. Why Vedvyasa has written life story of Pandavas? Why not any other kings? We have heard of Raja Harishchandra. He was such a great king. But Vedvyasa did not select his life. He selected life of Pandavas. Because in the life of Pandavas, whatever came, they never hated it and they never uh, desired it. Whether if Krishna wants us to stay in forest, we'll stay in forest. If Krishna wants us to stay in palace, we will be in palace. But they were always absorbed in Krishna consciousness. Okay, I'll take a pause here. Yes, Vedanta, anything important?
Sir, they were desiring the kingdom, na?
Not for themselves. Krishna wanted. They did not desire war. That's why they sent Krishna as peace messenger. And Krishna told Duryodhana, you just give one village. If they wanted kingdom, Krishna would have said, Yudhishthira wants kingdom, give kingdom back. Krishna would not have proposed anything less than that. Isn't it? With so much, such a great, so much efforts they had to put to develop Indraprastha. And they were ruling Indraprastha so nicely. In one moment, everything was taken from them. And they unnecessarily they suffered for 13 years in exile. And when they came back, Duryodhana is not returning their own share. Duryodhana is not, Yudhishthira is not asking Hastinapur. He's asking his own kingdom, Indraprastha. What had happened, if you know little something about Mahabharata, uh, when the time came, Yudhishthira to become the king, so Dhritarashtra did not want to give up, and Duryodhana also wanted to become the king. So they had this Hastinapur, which was fully developed, the capital of entire Bharatvarsha. And then there was this land, Indraprastha, Khandavprastha, which was this was completely barren land, forest land. That was very big land, but it was all useless. So what Duryodhana did very cleverly, he said, "Oh, let's remain together. Let's rule together. Will rule Hastinapur. We'll give you Indraprastha. We'll give you Khandavprastha. Why don't you establish your capital there?" So Krishna said, "Take it." They accepted it, and this entire Khandavprastha was forest. To develop a kingdom, Duryodhana thought, what will they do in the forest? They'll not be able to develop a palatial this kingdom as big as Hastinapur. They did not know that Krishna is with them. And entire Khandapras forest, Arjuna burnt, Agni burnt it actually. Krishna and Arjuna, they both helped Agni in burning the Khandaprastha forest. And there was this demon named Maidana. This Maya demon, just like demigods have architect called Vishwakarma, these demons have an architect called Maya. He's very expert in constructing spaceships, buildings, palaces, and his servants, who are yakshas, they're very magical. So this Maidana, he was running and Krishna was about to kill him because he's a demon. He would always create something for helping demons, and then demons would use his technology to attack demigods. So Krishna was about to kill him, but he surrendered unto the feet of Arjuna. He saw that Arjuna is devotee. If I take shelter of Arjuna, Krishna will leave me. So Krishna saw that he's taking shelter of my devotee, so Krishna stopped. So then Arjuna, as a Kshatriya, he let him go. But then Maya said, "You, because of you, I'm saved. So ask anything from me." Arjuna said, "I don't want anything. I have Krishna with me. I don't want anything." Krishna said, no, no. You keep this promise. When time comes, we will ask from you." Arjuna said, "Okay." So when this barren land was given, they Maidana was saved by Arjuna. When this barren land was given by Duryodhana through crooked politics, then Krishna said, "Call my demon, Maidana." And this Maya was called, and Krishna ordered him, "You build a nice capital, nice palace for these Pandavas and establish entire city." Within one night, Maya constructed such a beautiful palace, and this was very mystical palace. This palace had comforts of all other planetary systems. One can gain piety, one can perform sacrifices and ascend in the heavenly planets. And at one time, one can be in Swarga. Then, if one has more pious credits, he can enjoy in other heavenly planets. One cannot simultaneously enjoy in heaven also and in other planetary systems also. But Maya had constructed such a palace that all other planetary systems' opulences were present in that palace. And especially the assembly hall, everything is mentioned in Mahabharata. That assembly hall was such a such mystical that it had several windows, and through that windows, those windows open in other dimensions. Through those windows, you could talk to denizens of heaven or denizens of Samyani Indrapuri, Yamraj Lok, or any other planetary system. And when Duryodhana entered that palace, then Yudhishthira invited everyone to see their capital. Duryodhana, when he saw, he was like, why I don't have this? I gave them barren land and look what they got. So immediately that envy increased. And then later you all know what had happened. So this was their capital, Indraprastha, but still Yudhishthira did not want. These brothers were saintly. They had grown up in the company of sages. Kunti brought them in a palace to Dhritarashtra when they grew up to middle age, when they were in their teenage. So they had taken their all scriptural education in forest only when Pandu died. When they grew up little bit, then Kunti brought them. And here in a palace, they just learned martial arts from Dronacharya. Their spiritual education had happened in a forest among the sages. So they had served saintly personality. That's why these Pandavas were so good in qualities. Everyone admired them. Whereas Duryodhana and party, they always got homeschooling, paid teachers, tutors, hired tutors for them. So this is the difference between Gurukul system and modern education system. Gurukul system, a king or a Brahmana or a Vaishya or Shudra, whoever he may be, they send their son to a Gurukul, where everyone serves Guru menially. Even Krishna served Sandipani, and Sandipani had sent them to fetch wood from the forest for sacrifice, dry woods from forest. And Krishna is king of, is grandson of Ugrasen, and he himself is supreme lord. Still, he went with Sudama, and they went to forest. Whole night they got stuck in forest due to heavy rain. So that is Gurukul, where one serves Guru. And there is no discrimination there. I am son of prince, I should get a special treatment. No. In Gurukul, everyone is same. So they would learn how to serve. And that's why when such a trained brahmacharis, when they would become king, they could rule with on the basis of scriptures, taking guidance from brahmanas. Duryodhana and his brothers never got this training. They were always in palace. If they wished, they would study. If they thought today we will bunk, so they would not attend class. Dronacharya could teach them so many things. Uh, I'm going off track. So Mahabharata comes, I have so many pastimes to share. I'll share one pastime and then begin fifth chapter discussion. Once Dronacharya was teaching Brahmastra. He wanted to teach Brahmastra. Why only Arjuna knew Brahmastra, not even Ashwathama? Dronacharya wanted to teach Brahmastra. But that day, this Duryodhana party said, today we will not study, today we want to play. And they left. And Yudhishthira and Nakul said they were more interested in studying scriptures and not so much interested in weapons. Bhima his favorite was mace. He was practicing that. So Arjuna and Ashwathama, only these two were there, and Dronacharya taught them. But Ashwathama, this was very difficult. There are two things. One is to shoot the weapon, other is to retract the weapon. So only Arjuna could master both. Not even Ashwathama knew how to shoot. He did not know how to retract it. So only Arjuna learned this. So that's the main thing. To serve. Why did I? Where from this all came? Yeah, from your question. With the desire. No, they did not desire any kingdom. They were very happy with Krishna. Whatever Krishna desired for them. If Krishna wanted them to stay in palace, Yudhishthira said, Krishna wants me to enjoy. So he accepted everything. If Krishna wants me to keep in forest, we will stay in forest. So that's why this is devotee. He neither hates nor desires the fruits of his activity. So that's why Yudhishthira Maharaj is always renounced. Among the top most devotees of Lord, Yudhishthira Maharaj is one of them. Such a person, Krishna says, free from all dualities. What is duality? This is happiness and distress, sukha dukha. He is free from all duality. He easily overcomes material bondage and is completely liberated. Almighty Amra. So that's why karma yoga is better than karma sannyasa. So renounce results, not actions. This is the message of Bhagavad Gita. One has to renounce results. Now in subsequent verses, Krishna again stresses that there are two things. In second chapter, if you remember, Krishna spoke about analytical study, body and soul. This is analytical study. This is known as Sankhya Yoga. So some say that this Sankhya Yoga is different from devotional service. The goal of both is same. Only difference in Sankhya Yoga, a person uh, first analyzes the matter. Oh, this is earth, water, fire. He studies different elements. Then he goes to the root. Everything is coming from Vishnu. Then he engages in service of Vishnu. But in devotional service, right from the beginning, one engages in service of Vishnu. So ultimately, both are same. Those who call it different, because Arjuna thought, why Krishna is saying this here? Arjuna thought that to uh, think of a body as separate from soul and to understand this analytically, one has to go to the forest and does not have to fight. Remember in third chapter, Ekam Vad, whether to use intelligence or whether to engage in devotional service. That was his confusion. So Krishna is saying actually both are same, but devotional service is better. Merely renouncing all activities yet not engaging in devotional service of the Lord cannot make one happy. But a thoughtful person engaged in devotional service can achieve the supreme without delay. Yoga yukto vishuddhatma viditatma jitendriya sarvabhutatma bhutatma kurvannapi na lipyate. So Krishna says one who works in devotion, who is a pure soul, who controls his mind and senses, is dear to everyone, and everyone is dear to him. Though always working, such a man is never entangled. So this is talking about devotees, pure soul. They control their mind and senses, and they are very dear to everyone. You may be thinking, what is this picture about? So this picture is about one of the great sage saint. His name was Haridas Thakur. He appeared 550 years ago. He was from a Muslim family. Because this verse talks about such people, such pure souls. I've taken one example here. He was such austere person. He was so absorbed in chanting the holy name, and he was always serving Krishna. Was chanting the holy name, preaching the holy name. So he became very famous. But one fellow, his name was Ramchandra Khan, he was very envious of this Haridas Thakur. So he wanted to spoil his fame, and he sent one prostitute to uh, distract Haridas Thakur from his bhajan. But Haridas Thakur, his senses was so controlled, his mind was so controlled, that he transformed the prostitute only. That prostitute, within 3 days, she became a full-time devotee. She left everything and she became sannyasi. So this is the qualities of a devotee, one who is always working in devotion, is a pure soul, his mind and senses are controlled, and that's how he becomes dear to everyone. That's why even renounced people, those people who have renounced everything, they are also dear to everyone. They get fame. People want to touch their feet, take their blessings. So such people, such persons, though always working, is never entangled because he's not working for himself. He's working for the pleasure of Supreme Lord. Brahmanyadhaya karmani sangam tyaktva karotya lityate na sapapena padma patram ivambhaja. Krishna is explaining science how one is working in the material, but still he is not entangled in reaction. So he is giving example of Padma Patram Ivambhasa. The lotus is in the water, but untouched by water. So one who performs his duty without attachment, surrendering the results unto the Supreme Lord, is unaffected by sinful reaction. Just like a lotus is untouched by the water. So a person who is working for Supreme Lord only, he is in the society, is in the material world, but still he is not in the material world. That's the secret. That's the secret of success. Success is not in acquiring big things. Success is in achieving the purpose of this life. If one forgets the purpose, what's the gain? Narad Muni says in Srimad Bhagavatam, he says, very beautiful verse is there, Srimad Bhagavatam by Narad Muni. He says, Tyaktva swadharmam charnan bhujam hare bhajan apakvotha pate tatoya yatra kva abhadra bhuda mushyakim ko artha apta abharitam sadharmata. He says a person who is engaged in devotional service, if he is not able to perform his duty, certainly this is not an excuse. Devotional service is not an excuse to not perform your duty. Krishna makes it very clear in second chapter. Perform your duty. Don't be attached to results, and don't be attached to not performing your duty. Karmanyavadhikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana. So, but still, Narad Muni says one who is engaged in devotional service, if he is not able to perform, if he fails in completely doing his duty nicely, still there is no loss because he is engaged in devotional service. Whereas a person who is very pakka, very firm in performing his duty, everything is doing perfectly as per scripture, Varna Ashrama Dharma, but he is not engaged in devotional service. For him, there is no gain because everything is taken away at the time of death. Again, new body. He is not free from birth and death cycle. So that's the ultimate success. So Krishna recommends that Kayena manasa buddhya kevaler indriyerapi yoginah karma kurvanti sangam tyaktva atma shuddhaye. So how a yogi works? Or the yogi is abandoning attachment, act with body, mind, intelligence, even with the senses, only for the purpose of purification. So how to engage these senses? The senses has to be engaged. They have to be engaged in Krishna consciousness. Now in earlier times, yogis, they would, to get rid of attachments, they would leave home. They would leave everything. Big kings, we have heard of Bharat Maharaj. He was emperor. He left everything and went in forest to perform austerity. But that's not recommended and not possible also for Kali Yuga. So for Kali Yuga, the process of Krishna consciousness is recommended. Now one wants to eat. So Krishna says in third chapter, Yagya Shishtashinah Santo. Eat nice foods but offer it to Krishna. So this eating process, which was earlier cause of my bondage because I'm eating for satisfaction of my tongue, now becomes because of my purification. Because I'm eating which is offered to Krishna, which is called prasad. Then one wants to uh, say he wants to sing or he wants to hear some music. So he can sing kirtans, he can hear devotional music. One wants to talk, so he can talk about Krishna's pastimes. One wants to hear some drama, he wants to hear some thrilling story. That's why Ved Vyas has given us Puranas, Ramayana, Mahabharata. So read Ramayana, read Mahabharata, hear about Krishna's pastime, filled with thrill, drama, romance, everything is there. So a yogi, he engages his mind, intelligence, and senses only for purification. And this is best practice in Krishna consciousness. Yukta karma phalam tyaktva shanti mapnoti naishtikim ayukta kama karena phale sakto nibadhyate. So such a steadily devoted soul, he attains unadulterated peace. In this material world, even if someone gets temporary peace, next moment again a new anxiety comes. But a devotee attains unadulterated peace. He is not disturbed by material conditions because he offers the result of all activities to me. Whereas a person who is not in union with divine, he is enjoying his senses, is greedy for the fruits of his labor, he becomes entangled. Next slide, he gets another body. And then Krishna says, when the embodied living being, this body, we are engaged in this body. This body is known as Navadwara Pure Dehi. There are 9 gates in this body, 7 gates on the head, 2 gates in the bottom part. Eyes, nose, ears, mouth. These are 7 gates. And genital rectum. There are 9 gates of the body. That's why this body is compared as a city with 9 gates. A soul is residing in this city. The description, this entire story of analogy, there is one allegorical story of this body and how intelligence and air, everything. This is described by Narad Muni in Srimad Bhagavatam, 4th canto. If one wishes, they can read. You can read that in detail. The point is, in various points, in various scriptures, this body is compared as Navadwara Pura. Pura means a city. So when the embodied living being controls his nature, mentally renounces all actions, he resides happily in the city of 9 gates. Right now we are in this city of 9 gates, but we are not controlled. Our senses are not controlled. So mind is dragging us somewhere. Senses want to engage with sense objects. So many desires. So there is no realization of the soul. But when one works for the satisfaction of Lord only, he controls his mind and intelligence, engages senses only in Krishna's service, then he resides happily in the body, not disturbed by desires. One may think that how desires are disturbing. So this question should come. If I'm desiring something, how am I disturbed? People sometimes say, "Arey, this is what happiness is. Today I want to see movie, tomorrow I want to eat in restaurant, now I want to visit some mall, now I want to see something, hear something like that." But if one is happy by doing this, then it should reflect on his face. No? He should be satisfied. What is satisfaction? Satisfaction means now I am, and now this activity I can go on doing for. Sometimes people call this is my favorite. This is my favorite. And there is nothing called favorite in this world because you cannot enjoy anything for longer time. Can anybody say this is my favorite music? Try to hear your favorite music 10, 20 times. After that, see whether the same pleasure you are getting. And we taste something or we hear something, we see something. In first instance, the pleasure we get. From second instance, the pleasure decreases. That's the nature of this material world. That's why one is never satisfied. So he wants constant. He wants new things. He wants to change because nothing can give us permanent happiness. So desires are not actually making us happy. They're actually disturbing us. And one does not even understand this. He always remains unhappy, unsatisfied. But when one serves Krishna, when one engages in Karma Yoga, he resides happily in this body. He is not disturbed by desire. This is what Krishna explained in second chapter, last verse. The embodied spirit, master of the city of his body, does not create activity. Now Krishna is explaining that these activities which we are performing, which is cause of our bondage, this is not created by the soul. We are in this body, soul is there, because of soul this body is moving, but who is working actually? All this is enacted by modes of nature. We have got this mind, intelligence, and false ego. Due to false ego, we are thinking we are this body. We are not seeing ourselves. We are seeing this body only. So then various thoughts which come in the mind and intelligence follows the mind, that is the source of all the activities. And this mind thinks of something based on the modes only. So you can say these modes work through the mind. Somebody who is in mode of goodness, his mind will also think of sense gratification, but in a better way, in a civilized way, in a Vedic way. Somebody who is very passionate, he will think of sense gratification another way. Like when I hated cricket, I never liked cricket. My brothers were very fond of cricket. My father and brothers. I never liked cricket. But that did not mean that I was renounced. I was sense controlled. No, I liked badminton. I liked cartoons. I did not like cricket. So this is different modes. Somebody likes this, somebody likes that. So these all modes they work through mind, and these are the cause of activities. And these activities determine which body we are going to take next. Different bodies a soul takes. And not as Supreme Lord assumes anyone sinful or pious activity. Even Supreme Lord is not responsible. Who is responsible? Krishna, he doesn't take anyone's sinful reaction. He is not working. So we are bewildered, embodied beings are bewildered because of the ignorance which covers their real knowledge. Sometimes people say, Bhagwan ki hi ichha se ho. Supreme Lord is desiring. That's why everything is happening. He is not desiring, he is sanctioning. Krishna sanctions. Supreme Lord sanctions, okay, let it be. But he is not desiring and neither he is working. It is we who are thinking, or in fact, or rather we can say it is our mind which is thinking, because we are covered with ignorance. So our mind is very active. So false ego and mind makes friendship, and intelligence, because it is not guided by scriptures, it cannot do anything. So then intelligence has to follow whatever mind is saying, and the soul remains engaged in the body. And Lord just sanctions it. If I desire something and if my karma supports that desire, Krishna will sanction, okay, take it. If not, then he will not sanction it. Just for example, if you say you pass from some showroom, you see BMW car. Now desire comes, I should also have this car. But then there is no bank balance. So that desire cannot be fulfilled. So similarly, if I don't have karmic balance, credits, all desires will not be fulfilled. So Lord will sanction only that much which is supporting our, if we have that sufficient credit in our karmic account. But he is not responsible for these actions. But when, however, one is enlightened with the knowledge, proper knowledge that I am a soul, I am bound, I am engaged in this body, how modes are working on me. When one is enlightened with this knowledge, by which science is destroyed, his knowledge reveals everything. What everything he can see that how Supreme Lord is controlling everything. These modes are also under his control. If I start serving him, he will remove this ignorance from me. As the sun lights up everything in the daytime. This is very wonderful pastime in Srimad Bhagavatam. There's a 5-year-old boy, his name was Dhruva. He was son of King Uttanapal, who was ruler of this planet. This happened in Satya Yuga, long back, first Manvantara. So this Dhruva wanted a big kingdom. He was insulted by his stepmother. He wanted a bigger kingdom than Brahma. So he had gone to perform austerity. He was guided by Narad Muni. And then he practiced. He performed such great austerity. Within 5 months, he got darshan of Lord. And when Lord appeared, he wanted to pray. But he could not. He did not. 5-year-old boy, he had not gone in Gurukul also. So Lord just touched his conch on his cheek and he started reciting Vedic mantras, several prayers. But when Lord said, okay, you wanted something, you are practicing austerity to get kingdom bigger than Brahma. But then Dhruv, when he was immediately enlightened by the touch of Supreme Lord, he could understand how everything is illusion. This is all binding. Why should I desire something which will keep me in the material world? So he said, I don't want anything. I was looking for broken pieces of glass, but I have got diamond now. So why to take glasses, broken pieces of glass, when I have got diamond and I have got you? So this is called enlightenment. But still, Lord made him a ruler of this entire planet for 36,000 years. He ruled this planet and then he went to Vaikuntha. So he did not hate it. Why I don't want it? Why Krishna is giving me? Krishna is giving me. Okay. So he ruled the planet, but in a dharmic way. As he remained a devotee, he did not get entangled in sense gratification. And when the time came, he went to Vaikuntha, went back to God. Vidya Vinaya Sampanne Brahmane Gavi Hastini Shuni Chaiva Shapake Cha Panditaha Samadarshinaha. Krishna says, the humble sages, by virtue of true knowledge, when one gets knowledge, true knowledge, he becomes humble. Vidya Dadati Vinayam. You heard of this? We were taught this in schools, in Sanskrit book. Vidya Dadati Vinayam. Actual Vidya, actual knowledge makes one humble. But material knowledge makes one puffed up. Oh, I am a PhD. I am an MTech. I am BTech. I was an engineer. I was a doctor. I am this, I am that. I am a businessman. So this material knowledge, material skills makes one puffed up. But true knowledge, knowledge of the self, knowledge of the relationship with Supreme Lord, this makes one humble. Because one understands that I am such a tiny fragment, infinitesimal part and parcel of Lord. So by virtue of such true knowledge, a humble says, he sees with equal vision. He sees everyone equally. And see the examples Krishna has taken. Whom does he see equally? Brahmana, Gavi, cow, Hastini, elephant, Shuni means dog, Chaiva, Shwapake. Shwapake means one who is eating dog, Chandal. Very low grade human. He is human but very low grade. Panditaha Samadarshina, but a Pandit, when a Brahmana gets a Vedic knowledge, he is very expert in Vedic knowledge, not just reciting but practicing also, then he is known as Pandit. Pandit is not a title, Panditji. So a Pandit, he sees everyone equally. How does he see equally? Because he sees the soul, he sees Paramatma in everyone's body. He sees that everyone is soul, so he does not hate anyone, he does not love anyone, he is not partial to anyone. But this does not mean that when dog comes on your door or tiger comes on your door, oh, I have to become a Pandit, embrace the tiger. And that bodily distinction has to be made. But the vision should be that this is a soul and I am in this body, he is in this body. This body can disturb this body, so remain away. So this does not mean that Pandit goes and embraces tiger. So, but one who is not, this verse, very important verse of this chapter. ये हि संस्पर्शजा भोगा दुःखयोनय एव ते आद्यन्तवन्तः कौन्तेय न तेषु रमते बुधा. He says an intelligent person does not take part in the sources of misery which are due to contact with the material senses. The whole material civilization thinks that engaging senses in sense gratification is the goal of life. There was one ad, I don't know whether, now it is not shown. This ad was a person, employee, he is in his white coat and pant. He's a successful businessman. And then he says, लाइफ में और क्या चाहिए? थोड़ा सा पैसा, एक छोटा सा घर, एक छोटी सी गाड़ी, थोड़ी सी बॉस की तारीफ. And then he opens his Rajnigandha dabba. He eats one spoon, and then everything is shown. He has many vehicles, many cars, big cars. He's a CEO of a big company, has a big bungalow, and then so many juniors below him. And then last statement says, थोड़े थोड़े से थोड़े ना कुछ होता. Oh, this was ad, because ad company, they spend lakhs of rupees in making that 10 seconds ad. It is very attractive. How by eating one spoon pan masala one can become a businessman? But it is very attractive to the eyes. So this material civilization means accumulate more. Engage your senses in sense gratification. That's the goal of life. Success means how much money you have. This is predicted in Srimad Bhagavatam also. In the last canto, 12th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, the predictions of Kali Yuga is given. And there it is said success will be measured in terms of, not in terms of how much character he has developed or how much respected he is in the society. Success will be guaranteed how much material things he has acquired. If he has money, big bank balance, he is a successful man. Now, if you write in your resume your skills, now in skills everyone writes, I'm a good team player. I have learned, if he's a programmer, I've learned these languages. Then so many things he mentioned, isn't it? But does anyone write, I'm truthful, I'm very honest, I'm virtuous, I follow dharma, I never fight, I read Bhagavad Gita every day, I chant Hare Krishna Mahamantra every day, my senses are controlled. If you write these things in resume, will you get the job? Nobody wants this. Such people say, materialistic people, they say, Are devotees means he has no ambition. He's not passionate. Your passion is taking you to hell. What's the use of such passion? Become passionate, but for Krishna, not for yourself. You think Prabhupada was not passionate? But his passion was transcendental passion. Nobody can work like him. And you see his disciples, those who are serving in this movement today. Not even richest person of this world works so much as the leaders of Krishna consciousness movement are working. So, son of Kunti, such pleasures, these pleasures which are arising from sense gratification, senses, they have a beginning and an end. And so the wise man does not delight in them. One who is intelligent, he does not delight in them. He doesn't get attracted. I have left everything and I'm practicing Krishna consciousness, and others, they are enjoying, they are doing their party in club. He sees, he understands that today they are dancing, very soon they will dance with Yamdutas, and I'll be dancing with Krishna. So they don't delight in it. There are various examples in Bhagavatam that how by due to sense gratification, a living entity ends up meeting his death. There's the example of moth, Patanga. His sense of vision is uncontrolled. He sees fire and becomes very attracted towards it, and rushes towards the fire, gets roasted, dies. Deer, deer is very fond of hearing music. So how deers are trapped? The hunter, he plays music, nice music, and the deer, he just gets stunned where from this beautiful sound is coming, and then he approaches the source of the sound, and that's how he's caught. A fish, a fish has uncontrolled tongue. A fish is caught by keeping a small bait on the hook, and the fish gets caught because of that. Similarly, a bee, it gets caught because of its smell. It likes the smell of lotus, and even after sunset, it doesn't want to come out. And then after sunset, the lotus closes and it dies of suffocation. Similarly, elephant, how they are caught? They are caught by sense of touch. She elephant is trained, and the she elephant just touches the male elephant, and she runs. And this male elephant follows she elephant, and he falls in the ditch. So that's how they are caught due to their uncontrolled senses. Human being, a human has all five senses uncontrolled. Our senses are more developed than animal senses, so we can enjoy senses, and that's why we are in more danger than animals. Even though we have opportunity to liberate ourselves, but the senses, if they are not trained, they are not uh, controlled, then all five senses drag us, and we move faster towards lower species, towards hell. So Krishna, at the end of this chapter, he explains that how a yogi, he shuts all external sense objects. This is Dhyan Yoga, which he mentions, which will be elaborated in 6th chapter. He says he shuts all his external sense objects. Shuts means he does not engage the senses with sense objects. And keeping eyes and vision concentrated between the two eyebrows, and he practices the breathing pranayama, suspending the inward outward breaths within the nostrils. This we will discuss tomorrow. So he controls his mind in senses and intelligence. Aiming at liberation, he becomes free from desire, fear, and anger. One who is always in this state is certainly liberated. This is the method of becoming liberated. Want to try? But Krishna gives last statement as this, that a person who is in full consciousness of me, knowing me to be the ultimate beneficiary of all sacrifices and austerities. This is, what is this verse? Anybody remembers? So Krishna says, the Supreme Lord of all planets and demigods, benefactor and well-wisher of all living entities. He attains peace from the pangs of material miseries. So this is end of 5th chapter. Here Krishna says, a person who is working in full consciousness of me, understanding that I am the master of everything, Bhoktaram Yagya Tapasam Sarvaloka Maheshwara. Suhridam Sarvabhutanam Gyatva Mam Shanti Vichyati. This is the ultimate peace formula Krishna is giving in this chapter. So if one wants to be liberated, he can practice this method, which will be elaborated in 6th chapter. But here Krishna is hinting, giving a hint that better than that is this person who is working in full consciousness of me, understanding that I am source of everything, I am the enjoyer of all sacrifices, I am the benefactor and well-wisher of all living entities. Such a person attains peace. So he doesn't have to go to forest and perform this yoga, this Ashtanga yoga. It will be discussed in detail in 6th chapter. Again, we will see Arjuna rejects this. So this is Karma Yoga, action in Krishna consciousness, means always working for Krishna. So in summary, Karma Yoga is equal to but easier than renouncing work. That is explained in first 6 verses. Krishna explains that in the description of Nishkam Karma Yogi. Nishkam Karma Yogi means he is only working for Krishna. He doesn't have any desire for himself. Then he explains relationship between Ishvara, Jiva and Prakriti. What is the relationship between Ishvara Jiva and Prakriti? The Prakriti is under Krishna. Krishna is free from modes. He doesn't take anyone's reactions. Jiva, he is bound. He is within the material nature. And due to three modes of material nature, he takes on various bodies. Vision of a Jnani or a Paramatmavadi who understands this relationship, what is his vision? And then Krishna introduces Dhyana Yoga in second last verse. And in last verse, he gives the peace formula. So tomorrow we will hear about this Dhyana Yoga in detail. And again we will hear Krishna's final conclusion, whether to perform this Dhyana Yoga, because to perform Dhyana Yoga, again Arjuna has to leave everything. If I have to become a Dhyana Yogi, so I have to go to forest, leave this fighting. And Krishna wants Arjuna to fight. So why is he explaining Dhyana Yoga? And how Arjuna rejects it? Why Arjuna rejects it? Then who is the better yogi? How to become a yogi then? This will again be cleared in 6th chapter. So we'll stop here. That was 5th chapter. Any doubts, any questions? Yes, Ashley Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Prabhuji, I am a student right now, and according to teachers and according to this material world, everyone says that you have to set up your goal, and you have to visualize it for law of attractions works, and you have to visualize your success. You have to visualize your after 2-3 years where you will be. You have to visualize how you are learning. Suppose I'm a doctor, so how are you learning the new techniques? You have to actually think of them all the time. And but when someone comes in Krishna's consciousness, does he rejects everything like that, and he just thinks of serving the Krishna? Is that means you can guide me? How should I
I understood your
think
question.
when I'm in Krishna's consciousness?
When somebody comes to Krishna consciousness, then will it not stop him from pursuing his material goals? If I'm studying and if I become devotee, everyone is telling me you have to see where you are going, you have to plan. So that's what Krishna is saying in Gita. Planning is okay. Do your karma. What does it mean performing your duty nicely? If I have to perform my duty, so I have to see how to do it. Now Pandavas also planned. Did they not plan? They planned the entire war. They arranged the entire army. But ultimately they were dependent on Krishna. Success or failures, success or failure is in the hands of Krishna. But when it came to doing duty, we will see in later chapters, Krishna reveals when he shows his universal form, he shows that all the warriors are killed, already killed. And he tells Arjuna that you just fight. You are an instrument. They are already killed by me. So Arjuna did not say, they are already killed by you. Why should I fight? Let me go home. You kill everyone. When you are done with them, come back also. Then we will again play as we used to play. No. When it comes to performing your duty, you do it 100%. Give your full. But not going away from Krishna. So Pandavas, they also did their duty. They arranged all the armies. When they were performing, when Yudhishthira Maharaj wanted to perform Rajsriya sacrifice, so Rajsriya sacrifice needed so many things. All the 4 brothers were sent in 4 directions. Because until you conquer all the kings, unless all the kings are they're agreeing under your leadership, you cannot perform Rajsriya sacrifice. So many endeavors they did, but everything for pleasure of Krishna. And if Krishna allows me to become successful, I will accept that. If he does not allow, I'll accept that. So they were doing it because Krishna wanted them to do it. If Krishna had told them, went as a peace messenger, Duryodhana is not ready to give a land which can hold a piece of needle also, a tip of needle also. So better, I think you people should stay in the forest. Why to fight? So many people will be killed. So these Pandavas would have said, okay, Krishna, nice, we are going back. Krishna wanted, no, I have come here to reestablish Dharma. I want you to become the king, rule. So that's why they were doing. So in Krishna consciousness, when we understand Bhagavad Gita, so we understand it in this manner, in this way, as it is. Krishna wants me to do my duty. Right now, I'm a student. As a student, I should study nicely, and I'm doing my part. If Krishna wants me to give result, I'll get a good job. If Krishna does not want, I'll get some another kind of job. Whatever Krishna wants, I'll get them. But when I'm doing my duty of studying, let me do it very nicely. Not that it is already fixed, so why should I study? So that's what
It means
planning
like
is
I have
for.
to plan for my like job, what kind of job I
Yes,
want,
exactly.
and then leave it
One should
leave it
plan, one
at
should, and
the
then leave
hands of
it. Do
Krishna.
your best, leave the rest.
Okay, Prabhuji, I was like in a very build word. Thank
But
you for
balance, make a balance. It's not that I'm planning and just plan. It should not become over endeavor. There's something called prayas. That's called ati prayas. Over endeavoring means
okay,
I've forgotten Krishna totally. I don't have time for
okay,
my
okay.
chanting. I don't have time for my reading, hearing. One should have this spiritual practice, spiritual foundation, and then rest part of the day. I'm soul. I've got this body. So for body, I'm working 12 hours. For soul, I'm not even giving 2 hours. That's not justice. That's imbalance. Which is more important, body or soul? Hmm?
Soul
Soul is
for
important.
liberation and body for survival.
Yes, but if soul is happy, you will be happy in any condition of life. If you are satisfied,
Yes,
if you have realized the soul, worldly pleasures or distress will not bother you. Everything will
yes,
seem, you see, even what to speak of devotees, people who are highly intellectual, even they are better, they are more happier than those who are thinking rich people. Why do you think these scientists, they are in the laboratory whole day? Because they are getting some pleasure at the level of intelligence. You bring any scientist in a Bollywood party, you bring any theoretical physicist or experimental physicist or a rocket scientist in Bollywood party, see his face. He will say, I'll better commit suicide rather than coming to these parties. They are dumb people. His level of pleasures, he is seeking pleasure at intellectual level. And these people are seeking pleasure at bodily platform. We have already seen this in previous chapter: bodily platform, sensual platform, mental platform, intellectual platform, and then spiritual platform. The soul is most important. So if you are getting spiritual bliss, you will not hanker for anything. Right now, we are not on that platform that we can be like sages or munis and stay under a tree and be happy. That's why Yukta Vairagya is recommended for us. You be in your position, but engage everything in Krishna's service. Engage your body, mind, and words in Krishna's service. Right now, I'm a student. I'm not a full-time devotee. I'm not working 24 hours for Krishna. So I am giving some part of my day fully, exclusively to Krishna consciousness. The remaining part, whatever I am doing, I am offering the results to Krishna. That's Karma Yogi. Understand?
okay, Prabhuji. Okay. Yes, yes, yes. Thank you for the enlightenment, Prabhuji.
Yes,
Hare
Vedanta.
Krishna, Prabhuji.
Sir, my question is that Krishna is the supreme Lord. He has created all the planets. He's controller of everything. Then what comment will you give on other religions? Are they branches of the Supreme Lord, or what are they?
For this, I have a separate session for 2 hours. If God is one, why so many religions?
Provide us link, please.
No, I take this session. So we'll do this session for all of you in level 2. But I'll answer this question briefly. So different religions, they were preached different as per time, place, and circumstance. So just like a teacher PGT, postgraduate teacher, he has done his bachelor's degree, he has his master's degree, he has his diploma, B.Ed, and then he comes as a teacher in the school after passing the entrance exam, isn't it? So the same teacher, mathematics teacher, is teaching 5th class student also, he's teaching 10th standard student also, he's teaching 12th standard student also, and he may be teaching in a college also. So teacher knows higher mathematics, but he is teaching as per students' capacity. For primary student, no negative numbers. 2 minus 3 equals to what? Students will say, sir, wrong question. It should be 3 minus 2. Yes, 3 minus 2. But when it comes in secondary class, 2 minus 3, immediately minus 1. When it comes in higher secondary, they study higher mathematics, integration, differentiation, relations, functions. When it comes in engineering mathematics, calculus, vectors, the same teacher, isn't it? So depending upon the capacity of the audience to digest things, the message is preached. Essence remains the same, basic principle remains the same. So all these different religions, the essence is the same. All these traditions, you see in Sikhism, they chant the holy name. In Islam, they chant holy names of Allah. In Christianity, they chant holy name of Lord. And what we are doing, chanting the holy name. So they don't have direct knowledge of Supreme Lord. They don't have detailed knowledge. So these different traditions, they are like pocket dictionary. But Sanatan Dharma is like Chambers dictionary, where you have all the details. Like in Bible, it is said, God said, "Let there be creation," and there was creation. That's all. Yes, God is omnipotent. Even he just has to say. He doesn't even have to say. He just thinks of something and it becomes a reality. But how? How did it? Then in their this Quran, it is explained. Lord created everything within 7 days. He created seven different heavens. uh, So that seven planetary systems is mentioned in Quran also. And it took him these many days. And then his throne is on. He has a majestic throne on water. What kind of throne is this? Why on the water? And why God created this world? Why seven heavens? Why not one heaven? And why am I suffering? Someone else ate forbidden apple and I am suffering because of him. Is this justice? Why only one life? If God is supreme, he should have he should be supremely merciful. So why he has given me only one life chance? Already half of life has gone. I have so less time. So these questions are not answered. But when you come to Gita, Bhagavatam, other Vedic literatures, you find all detail. He has a majestic throne. Somebody sits on sofa, somebody sits in a big car or whatever. But Lord sleeps on Sheshna, snake bed. And what kind of snake is this? Is his own expansion. He carries entire universe on his hood. And this ocean is not this planet Earth ocean. This ocean is bottom of the universe, which can submerge entire universe. So when I see everything through this light, then it becomes very clear. Then how he creates all these details are there in Bhagavatam. All the elements, Mahatattva, from Mahatattva, false ego comes, from false ego, then intelligence comes, then mind, then how from sound, sky comes from sky, air comes from air, fire comes from fire, water comes from water, earth comes. All these elements are there. How mind is created from mode of goodness, intelligence from mode of passion. Complete detail is there. How Brahma creates, Lord expands himself in so many Vishnu Murtis. He is great, so he does things in a magnificent way. Why he has to expand? He can just be one. Yeah, he can be one, but he is so great, unlimitedly great. So many details are there. So one who understands this, he can see that other traditions, what they are explaining, it's not false, but it is like at lower level. The time when this message was preached, at that time, public was not ready. People were not ready. And it is required also. Why Krishna is allowing so many religions to remain? Because it is
But
required.
sir, in other
People are in
religions,
different modes. Hmm.
in other religions, the non-veg is eating non-veg is not a sinful act. So it disturbs the
It
main
is
essence which you said.
actually it is. If you see, it is. How? In Bible, Jesus Christ has given 10 commandments. And in the 10 commandments, one of the commandments is thou shalt not kill. When Prabhupada went to Western countries, he dealt with all Christians based on this commandment only. The details are different because different audience was there. The social custom and rules and regulation for this laying of society, they may be different. It may not be as good as Varnashram Dharma, but there are differences. But these basic principles of Dharma are the same. Having compassion, showing mercy on others, practicing virtues, truthfulness, these qualities are mentioned. Jesus Christ said, "Thou shalt not kill." Not kill means not kill. Not he did not say, "Thou shalt not murder." So no meat eating. And I explained this yesterday only, no? Day before yesterday. He's always picturized having a lamb in his hands. So he's showing mercy towards animals, and at various places it is shown that one who shows mercy towards other creatures is very dear to Lord. Similarly, in Quran also, they are allowed to eat meat, but there are so many restrictions. It should be halal. Okay. Name of God should be recited, and there are so many things to be followed while killing an animal. So that is there because they were already killing animals, so it could not be stopped altogether. And then in later chapters, it is said, you know, your flesh is not reaching Allah. Your act of sacrifice, your mood, that is reaching Allah. I'll share one video in the group. A few days back, I kept it on my status. I shared that video with all of you. So, and then in 16th chapter in Quran, it is said that one who shows mercy towards other living creatures, considering them, they are the same community. They are also community like yours. So such person is very dear to Allah. And they are also community, no? Crows community, parrots community, swans community, cow community, bull community, human community. They are communities. So one who shows mercy towards them, he is dear to Allah. So when I take these instructions together, then I see that it is not required for the body. Flesh eating is not required. Can anyone say that I'll not remain a Muslim if I stop eating meat? Can anyone say that?
No.
Can anyone say I'll not remain a Christian if I stop killing beef, if I stop killing cow?
No. No.
So then don't. But if I start killing animals, I cannot be called a devotee. That's for certain. That's for sure. So in some places it is hinted indirectly. And when it comes to Sanatan Dharma, it is very directly said. No, strictly no. It's a sin. So we have to understand, we have to take in consideration the time, place, circumstances in which they were preaching. Prophet Muhammad had to run for his life and remain in a quarantine, lockdown. His life was threatened. Jesus Christ, he preached for a few days and he was crucified. That was the condition of society. And even in our Hindu society, Lord Chaitanya was preaching Hare Krishna mantra, and the Brahmanas only they complained to Muslim ruler. Are he is spoiling our Hindu dharma. So then devotees they had to face difficulties, but then Lord Chaitanya settled everything. So these things are up there. People are of different modes, different natures, different tendencies. So to facilitate them, Lord has given various things. You cannot have only engineering college. Let everyone be in this standard. You have to have first grade, second grade, third grade, then higher grade, then colleges, universities, then masters. Only few people will be in highest batch pursuing PhD. Not everyone will be in that group.
Okay, thank you, sir. And a request that whenever you will start your level 2 sessions, please let us know. We are interested. At
Yes,
least I am.
everything will be announced, informed through the group, WhatsApp group. Be in the group. So we will announce in WhatsApp group when we start.
Okay, thank you, sir. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Yes. Some questions are there in the chat box. If anyone else has question, they can raise hand. Oh, when Prabhupada left home, did he fulfill his responsibility to his children? Yes, he fulfilled. Prabhupada had how many? 4 children. So he had a factory. He was running pharmaceutical factory. He earned, and then he wanted to preach. He wanted to fulfill the desire of his spiritual master. So he requested his son also. His plan was that my sons, they will become my helping hands in preaching, in fulfilling the order of my guru, and my wife will be a support. Somehow it did not work, and then Prabhupada, his sons were not becoming independent. They were very much dependent on him. Like sometimes, when father is earning nicely, when son becomes kamchor. So they were not earning, they were dependent on Prabhupada only. So Prabhupada wanted them to become at least financially independent so that he could preach. So then he saw he was already in 50 years of his life. So his sons were grown up, and then due to some circumstances, family was not supportive, so he left everything and went to preach. Not that when he left, his family was suffering, they became pauper. Sons were. It is recommended in scriptures for first 25 years of life, practice brahmacharya, stay in Gurukul, cultivate knowledge. Then one can enter householder life if he wishes to, else he can remain a brahmachari whole life. But when he enters householder life, so if one wants to enter household life, enter after 25, within 25 to 30 years. Because one has to renounce, take vanaprastha after 50 years. So when he gets married after 25 years, in 26th or 27th year, he will have children, and children will be grown up by the time he reaches 50 years of age. They can take care of themselves. So then he can take vanaprastha, and children are earning on their own. And then later, after a few years, he keeps wife in the shelter of his children, and he takes sannyas. This is a Vedic. This was Vedic culture. People were following this. So Prabhupada left home family when he was 50 years, above 50 years. And then he took sannyas. But you see, that's why it is recommended that in your household life only, or in your youth only, become a devotee, and then practice Krishna consciousness at home. Try to teach your family members. If you have wife or kids, teach them. And if you are the female, you have husband or kids, and try to bring them in Krishna consciousness. In any case, if others are not becoming devotees, one should continue on his own. One should continue his Krishna consciousness, and then taking guidance from spiritual master, guru, he should take decision in his life. Hare Krishna Prabhu, yesterday during lecture there were words which I expressed. I don't know. I did not say it, so I don't know this and don't apologize. That's all right. Thank you. Hare Krishna. Okay. Any more questions? All right. So we'll stop here. Tomorrow we'll see very important chapter, Dhyan Yoga. How to do Dhyan. How to Krishna instructs how to control the mind. This is very important chapter. Very famous among motivational speakers or those who practice meditation, because in this chapter Krishna talks a lot about mind, the whole cause of our material existence. The root cause of our material existence is this mind which is attached. So how to control this mind, this will come tomorrow's chapter. All right, so we'll stop here. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare.